Shinies are incredibly rare, only appearing in about 1 of every 4,096 Pokemon. With that knowledge, for some reason, I thought it'd be a good idea to attempt a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokémon Sword using only shiny Pokemon. That means if one of my colorful friends faint, they'll be gone for good, which sadly ended up happening a few times in this video. Regardless, I'm ready to move forward and start looking for my first shiny. Now, unfortunately, the starters in this game are shiny locked, thanks Nintendo, so rather than getting one of those guys, I moved through the early parts of the game towards the wild area. This place gives me easy access to a treasure trove of Pokemon, but we can utilize that later, as currently I have my sights set on something I can look for on Route 3. Heading over there, I make fun of Leon for his dumb looking victory pose and give myself a pretty nice number for the gym challenge. Past all that, we get to the place we're looking for, and it's got one of my favorite Pokemon in Galar, which is Roly-Poly. This very appropriately named little guy has a great shiny, so this is where we start our search. Shiny hunting here wasn't too bad, as it only took about 10.5 hours and 3,847 encounters to land this beautifully blue piece of coal. Oh my gosh! I was mid-yawn! There it is. There's our Roly-Poly, wow. I name him Cole, and as always, there's a greater nicknaming theme, and if you figure that out, leave it in the comments down below. I'll be liking every correct answer. Roly-Poly evolves right away, and since he's no longer a little guy, I look to get some better moves by going to the wild area to spend my watts. These took me forever to collect, but I was able to get the move Heat Crash and Flamethrower for this upcoming gym. To get there, I've got to pass Beat and his psychic types in the Galar Mine, which isn't too much of a problem with my new moveset. I ended up getting in a way bigger issue in the next area when I got slammed into by these Wooloos. I mean, I hit my head pretty hard on the ground. I should be able to press charges. Do you guys think there's laws in the Pokemon universe? I mean, I feel like if my Charizard accidentally barbecues somebody, I should be held accountable, right?
Stop it. Get some help.
What do I know? I'm built for Nuzlocke, so I go ahead and continue mine by facing Milo for my first badge. This fight wasn't too bad, as I started with a few flame charges to raise my speed stat going into the second Pokemon, Eldegoss. Milo's a dirty cheater, and Dynamax his Pokemon, which is something we can't do throughout this entire run. That simple rule gave me a ton of issues in the future, but not so much now, as I can go for super effective fire moves to burn up these grass types. With that first badge acquired, I start to make my way towards the second, and honestly, it is fully impossible if I don't catch another Pokemon. Nessa's a water type trainer and is 4 times super effective against my Carkol. Because of all that, I start getting ready for my next shiny hunt, and in doing so, I get my bike on Route 5 and talk to Hop again as he wants to battle. He's got 3 Pokemon, which isn't the issue for me. It's the fact that he keeps trying to put my trainer to sleep with boredom, which would cause me to lose the fight. Thankfully, I was able to stay awake, but geez, that was close. Now that I've made it to Hulbury, I can't really put it off any longer, as it's time for me to start looking for my next shiny. Originally, I wanted to hunt on Route 4 as there's a ton of electric types that could have been really useful. Sadly, most of these guys evolve above the level cap of 24, so instead, I make my way to Route 5. Not really caring about what I get, I stumble around in the grass until after about 6 hours where I land myself this shiny Minccino. Thankfully, this hunt was pretty quick, but later on, I won't be able to say the same, as one shiny in particular took me an entire month to get. Moving back to Minccino, I catch her and name her Quartz and find out her ability is Technician, which is perfect for what I have planned. Minccino is a stone evolution, so by heading back to the wild area, I can talk to this hiker with some weird looking eyes and obtain a shiny stone. Using this stone on my even shinier Pokemon gets me a Cinccino. Cinccino gets access to a bunch of different multi-hitting moves, specifically Bullet Seed, which I'll be able to use against Nessa. She leads the fight with her Goldeen, but after connecting with Bullet Seed 3 times, she gets pulled back out for Articuno. This fish has essentially no defense stat, and with the damage boost I get from Technician, I can easily one-shot. This all brings me on to Nessa's ace Pokemon, Dreadnought, and this guy really lives up to his name. His base stats add up to 485, which wouldn't be too much if they weren't distributed so well. He's got one major weakness though, and that's grass type moves, so I start by going for a Bullet Seed that hits twice. Nessa then hit me with a Max Strike, lowering my speed by 1 stage and forcing me to eat my Citrus Berry. With that additional health, I can survive a Max Strike, then with a move of my own, I can take the Dreadnought down. 6 more gyms to go, and unfortunately, I know most of them aren't gonna go this well. I can quickly forget about that though, as right when I leave the gym, I see Ball Guy and he starts dancing. I mean, look at this guy. Moving past those sick moves, I've got to talk to Chairman Rose, and he's got a bunch of nothing to say to me. I feel like I should have listened here, but I didn't, so. sorry. In Galar Mine number 2, I easily defeat Bede, and then he calls me weak and says I lack talent, but what does that say about him, since I just beat him with only 2 Pokemon? Past all that is the Motostoke outskirts, and this is a place I will definitely be shiny hunting at later, as it's home to one of the best shinies in the game. Before starting that hunt, I want to complete my next gym, so to prepare myself, I go ahead and battle my rival, Marnie. Marnie's not an issue right now, but later on, these fights won't be so one-sided. That being said, it's time to fight Kabu, but before the fight, I give my Carkol a hard stone to increase the damage of my rock-type moves by 20%. This increased firepower helps me right away, as I deal half to Ninetales with a single smackdown. Ninetales then activates my ability Steam Engine with a fire spin, which will increase my speed by 3 stages. This makes me faster than the following Pokemon Arcanine, whose ability lowers my attack by 1 stage. Even with that setback, I'm still dealing over a third, and this is when Arcanine starts to set up agility. It doesn't really matter how fast he is though, since a flamethrower and smackdown will take him down all the same. After all of that, I'm on to Gigantamax Centiskorch, and to be honest, he doesn't put up much of a fight. My rock-type moves are quite effective, so all it takes is a few stones to defeat Kabu and this oversized worm. Now that all that's done, I escort Hop outside of Motostoke where he gets into a fight with Bede, but I really don't care about that as it's time for me to start looking for my next team member. In the outskirts I mentioned earlier, I can find a Hatino, which is one of the best shinies in Generation 8. Looking for her was a problem, since she only has a 10% chance of appearing. This led to a really long hunt, but eventually, after 5,192 encounters, I was able to find this shiny. There we go! Bang! There it is! Yes, man! That was long. We're good though, we got it. We got it. This took about 42 hours, which is longer than both of my previous 2 shiny hunts combined. It's finished now though, and we have Salt on the team, so I guess it was all worth it. I can now finally start to continue the story and move on to Hammerlock, where I meet up with Leon again. He's a little bit worried about his brother, which I can understand, but he should be way more alarmed about how much glaze he's getting from his fans. This person says a lot of people buy replicas of Leon's uniform, but nobody can wear it because the cape is too heavy, which I just have a hard time believing. They probably do actually believe that, as it seems like the residents in Hammerlock City are really smart. Getting out of there as soon as possible, I find myself on Route 6 battling against Team Yell. Hop is there, and he said Bede told him that he was dragging Lee's good name through the mud being so rubbish, and low-key... That's all I'll say about that as I make my way towards the next town, and once I'm there, I evolve my Carkol into Colossal and my Hatina into Hatterene. The next gym represents fighting types, and those are really hard for me to deal with. Sure, I have Hatterene, but she doesn't really have any setup moves, and all of my other Pokemon are weak to fighting, so it's time for me to catch another Pokemon. By moving back to Route 6, I can find Yamask, which is one of the best Pokemon for this upcoming gym. It also boasts the highest encounter rate on the route of 35%, so it should be relatively easy to shiny hunt for. Thankfully, I was right, and I ended up finding my shiny after about 2,241 encounters, which was only about 9 hours. I gave him the name Jade, then found out he had a minus attack nature, which definitely isn't ideal. It's not really that big of a deal, especially for this upcoming battle, as I look to evolve him right away. Galarian Yamask has one of the craziest evolutions I've ever seen, as you have to take at least 49 damage, then move under this random rock in the Dust Bowl. Eventually, I do that, and since I'm already in the wild area, I decide to buy up a few TRs that I can use for this gym as well as the next 2. It's time to face Bee and her fighting types, as she leads with Hitmontop and I send in my Runerigus. Runerigus is obviously a ghost type, but apparently Bee doesn't know those exist, as she has 0 moves that can hit me. Because of this, I'm free to set up 6 consecutive Calm Minds and 3 Iron Defenses. This puts all my important stats at +6, and now I can start going for Psychic and Earth Power to take down Bee's Pokemon. Hitmontop, Pangoro, and Farfetch'd all go down to one-shots, and with that, I'm on to the final Pokemon, Machamp. Machamp has a Gigantamax form, but it really doesn't mean much when I'm hitting like a dump truck. Even with her insane health pool, she's taken down by a couple of Psychics, and with that, I've earned my 4th badge. As soon as I leave the gym, Bee ends up blowing up this mural for basically no reason. He either hates art or really doesn't like rocks, and I'm kinda not sure which one it is. I attempt to sway his opinion by defeating him with my Colossal, but it doesn't really work very very well. Past all that, I make it to Bologna, where I meet this artist who's gonna be really important for me later on in the game. We've still got 3 gyms, the Champion Cup, and a whole bunch of shinies to get along the way, so I hurried towards all that by facing Opal. Opal's battle is simple, as if you answer her questions right, she gives you stat boosts in return. Utilizing these buffs, I take out Weezing with a pair of Psyshocks, then I send in Colossal from a while. She takes super effective damage from Heat Crash, so just 2 of those bring me on to the 3rd Pokemon, Togekiss. She has ancient power and is kinda scary with an Omni boost, and unfortunately for me, she gets one right away. Her attack was boosted, so she does a little bit more damage, but thankfully Heavy Slam is still able to take the KO in 2. Last up is the ace Pokemon, Alcremie. Opal, being the superhuman she is, tosses up this Gigantamax ball, which had me worried for a little bit. Luckily, Alcremie isn't able to do that much damage, and since Opal gives me one more question, I can raise my attack stat by 2 stages. This makes my super effective Iron Head hit even harder, and with one more of those, I've defeated Opal and can move back to Hammerlock City. As I'm running out of this IQ deficient place, I find myself in a battle with Hop. I was able to defeat him, but this battle made me realize a few really important things about my team, the main one of which being my squad is unimaginably slow. My team's average base speed is 56, which is lower than Magikarp, Pichu, and a literal whale. That being said, my next goal is to get a faster Pokemon, so right after I make it to Circhester, I head back to the wild area. This place has a bunch of great Pokemon, but in the end, I decide to look for Noibat. It's one of my favorite shinies of all time, is pretty easy to hunt for, and has an extremely high speed stat. Sadly, we saw Noibat after Noibat, and no Sparkles to be happy about. Eventually, I was well over odds, but thankfully, the hunt would be ending soon, as after about 20 hours and 7,123 encounters, I found my shiny Noibat. Oh wow, that's the shiny. Oh wow, that's the shiny. Thankfully, it's an obvious one. I feel like I would have missed it if it wasn't. I was not really looking at my screen. Shiny Noibat, look at it, it's so good. I give Noibat the nickname Emerald, then check out its neutral nature, which doesn't mean much. It's now time for me to go back to Circhester, and on my way there, I evolve Salt into her final evolution, Hatterene. This shiny is just perfection, and I'm ready to use it right away in my next gym battle. That challenge ended up being a lot harder than it should have been, as I fell a lot, but once I made it to the end, I could fight Gordy for my 6th gym badge. He led the fight with Barbarnacle, who has the exact same issue as Dreadnought. No, it's not their ugly faces, it's their grass-type weakness that I can exploit by going for Bullet Seed. Hitting 2 times, Chinchino takes the Oko as I swap into Colossal for Shuckle. Shuckle's defenses are really high, but offenses not so much. That means a handful of moves takes him down and leads into Stonejourner. Stonejourner's special defense stat is nearly 0, and that's why I have Scald to take the easy one-shot. All of that brings me on to Gordy's last Pokemon, Gigantamax Colossal. He's actually faster than me and starts with his G-Max move that definitely would have killed me with a crit. Luckily, I survived and got off a Scald, which did a little over a third. This is where I swapped into Quartz to tank a G-Max Volcanith, and I do the same thing with Jay to turn after. That finishes Colossal's Dynamax turns, and with 1 quad-effective Earthquake, I've defeated Gordy, earning me badge number 6. Leaving the gym, I talk with Ball Guy again, and this time he's not dancing so happily, instead it looks like he's crying. Soon, I'm sure I'll be doing the same thing, since I'm about to get really unlucky, so I feel you, man. Moving on a little bit into the story, I somehow gaslight Sonia into thinking that Bob and his brilliant smile are part of the Galar legend. I don't even know how I did that. I then fight Hop in a pretty one-sided battle, and afterwards I talk to the citizens of Circhester. This person said they'd like to go someplace where they can meet a cute ice-type Pokemon, and that's definitely not in Circhester, as the only thing around here are Snom, and those guys have butt faces. Now, I'm looking to get ready for my 7th gym, so I start heading towards Spike Mode. I get a Rotom Bike to surf on the waves, then I find myself in a battle with Marnie right outside of the city. She reps Dark types, which would have been a problem for me before, but now I have a Fairy type. A handful of Dazzling Gleams as well as an Earthquake from Jade wins me the battle, and from there I can walk straight into the 7th gym. The challenge in this city is kinda just disturbing a bunch of random Team Yell members, even ones that didn't seem like they were ready for my arrival. Now it's time for the real challenge, which is sitting through one of Pierce's concerts. Oh yeah, and I guess we get into a battle. He leads with Scrafty as I send out Chinchino, who has the move Play Rough. Scrafty starts by hitting me with a Fake Out that I take full advantage advantage of on the next turn by going for an encore. This forces Scrafty to keep going for Fake Out, and since that move's only usable on the first turn, I can now go for a bunch of play roughs to take him down. Next is the ace Pokemon Obstagoon, and against him I start with a Charm to lower his attack by 2 stages. A Throat Chop doesn't do too much as I then encore him into going for Obstruct over and over. Eventually, Chinchino's done all she can, so I swap into Salt to finish off the Obstagoon. A single Dazzling Gleam does the trick against him, as well as the following Pokemon Malamar. That brings me on to the last, which is Skuntank, and after a few Earthquakes with Jade, I've won the battle. Afterwards, Pierce tells Marnie that she should be the leader of Spikemuth, and this would be a really cool storyline if they ever make remakes of this game. I don't know though, a lot of people don't like remakes, but personally, I really enjoy them. Let me know what you guys think, but anyways, it's time to go back to Hammerlock City where I talked to Sonia, the Professor, Hop, and Leon. We're starting to get into the last parts of the game, so I figure I might as well complete my team before things start to go downhill for me. In the North Lake Wild area, you can find Clink and Vanillite, and both of these Pokemon have a special place in my heart. Clink I used extensively when I was younger, and Vanillite is the first shiny I've ever found. Needless to say, I wanted to hunt here, and I was quickly rewarded for this decision as it only took about 12 hours to find myself this shiny Clink. I name him Iron, then check out his nature, which is Jolly. We can evolve him right away, and since the level cap is increased, I can also evolve my Noibat into Noivern. Even with that extra firepower, this gym is gonna be tough, and unfortunately, it ends up being a disaster. Raihan leads with Flygon and Gigalith as I send in Quartz and Salt. Connecting with Bullet Seed on Gigalith 3 times brings him down to a third, as Flygon then hits me with a Steel Wing, taking Salt down to about half. After that, a Dazzling Gleam takes down the Gigalith and brings Flygon into the red. Salt has served her purpose, so I swap her out for Clang. A Bullet Seed on Sandaconda takes him down to a third, a Steel Wing does not very effective damage, and Quartz gets hit by a Glare, paralyzing her. Knowing Sandaconda's probably gonna go for a ground type move, I swap into Noivern to take no damage. Unfortunately, this forces Noivern to eat a Breaking Swipe from Flygon, and after another Bullet Seed, Sandaconda's been finished off. This forces Raihan into his ace Duraludon, and Duraludon can Gigantamax, so I'm kinda scared. I thought that Duraludon would target my Noivern as it saw the KO with Max Rockfall. Unfortunately, he saw the KO on another one of my Pokemon, that being Chinchino, who got hit by a Max Knuckle. That is my first death of the run, but we won't let it go in vain as now I can swap into Salt to bait out both Steel type moves. With a safe switch into Clang, I can tank both attacks, then go for a Shadow Claw on Flygon to finish him off. On the next turn, I know Duraludon's going for a Max Knuckle, so I swap into Salt to take not very effective damage. That ends Duraludon's Dynamax turns, and by switching into Colossal, I can finish him off with a few Heat Crashes, and with that, I've earned my final badge, but unfortunately, lost a Pokemon doing so. After the fight, my Clang evolves into Clang, and then I go ahead and release my Chinchino. Surprisingly, with how sad this was, it still didn't stop me from losing even more team members in the future. Leaving the gym, I know I need another Pokemon, so I talk to Ball Guy to hopefully get some ideas. He hands me a Level Ball, which reminds me of something that's over the current level cap. That Pokemon is Dracoloak, which is debatably the best shiny in this game. This ended up being one of the longest shiny hunts I have ever done. In the Lake of Outrage, Dracoloak is a 2% overworld encounter. Thankfully, the area is big enough so that a lot of Pokemon spawn, but I was still encountering Dracoloaks extremely infrequently. With Noivern's chasing me all over the place, it was encounter after encounter with no luck at all. After a while, I was nearing a month and was about to give up. That was when, out of nowhere, I finally found this. Oh my gosh, I finally got it. Oh my gosh, I finally got it. It's about time. It's actually just about time. I can't. Let's go, man. Holy, let's go. I give Dracoloak the name Carbon, and unfortunately, she is well over the current level cap of 55. This means I won't be able to use her until after my first couple matches in the Champion Cup, but to prepare myself for that, I start to get some useful items from the wild area. I also decide to make my Noivern a physical attacker because he has access to the move Dragon Dance, which raises my attack and speed stat by 1 stage. I can also put on this fire tracksuit and go to the artist that I mentioned earlier back in Bologna. After talking with this crazy guy, he gives me the TM for acrobatics, which is incredibly useful. I show that off immediately in my Champion Cup battle with Marnie as she leads with her Lipard and I send in Emerald, my Noivern. Noivern is great for these battles, especially since I can heal any damage I take with Roost. By setting up 2 Dragon Dances, I can take down Marnie's Lipard with a Dragon Claw. This leads into Scrafty, who helps me out by going for a Swagger, which raises my attack by 2 more stages. Usually, I'd have the drawback of Confusion, but because of a Person Berry I found, I can cure myself immediately. Now that I'm at +5, I can OHKO each of Marnie's final 4 Pokemon, including her Gigantamax Grimmsnarl. This next fight is against the world's most annoying trainer, Hop. His first Pokemon is Dubwool, who's not a problem for my Colossal and a few heat crashes. Next up is Snorlax, who's really easily walled by Jade, so that's who I switch into. After a burn and a few Earthquakes, I can move on to Corviknight, who I also hit with a Will-O-Wisp. Because of how tanky I am, as well as the leftovers I have, I can eat a bunch of damage, and after a few Shadow Claws, Corviknight gets swapped for Pincurchin. Jade has Earthquake, which is super effective, and this leads me on to the final Pokemon, Rillaboom. I know he's going for a Grass-type move, so I swap into Noivern, who Quad resists. I can then take him down even through Dynamax with a pair of Acrobatics, and with that, I've defeated Hop and can move on to my next Champion Cup battle. As soon as I leave that, Leon thinks it's cool to do his pose again, which I don't want to see this, man. Stop it. It's now time to head towards Rose Tower, and on my way there, I see the same guy over and over, and I said this in the last video, but now I've confirmed it. These people are definitely robots. As I'm heading up the tower, I fight Alina, and this battle was a little bit scary in the beginning, but as I got further on, it became easier and easier. With her Gigantamax Garbodor finished, me and Hop go talk to the chairman about his co-worker's anger issues, cause she really shouldn't have been this mad. Now that I'm done with that little detour, I head back to the Champion Cup, and this is where Bede randomly decides to challenge me. His team is just as trash as it was in the beginning of the video, so all I need to do is bring out my Klinklang and go for Shift Gear. With a few of those, as well as a little bit of luck landing Gear Grind, I eventually make it to his last Pokemon, Hatterene. One more Steel-type attack blows her up, which sends me on to Nessa and her aquarium of Pokemon. This fight was a lot easier than I anticipated, as she led with her Gliscopod and I brought out my Noivern. With Noivern, I went for a few Dragon Dances as Gliscopod hit me with Shadow Claw. Most of that damage I could heal off with Roost, but once he set up a Swords Dance, I knew it was time to send him out with a Dragon Claw. This didn't kill, but thanks to his ability, Barraskewda was forced in. With basically no defense stats, she was pulled right back out for Pelipper. Pelipper's special attack stat is low, so I can set up 2 more Dragon Dances. At +5, a Dragon Claw takes out Pelipper, Gliscopod, and Seaking. A few setup moves in between all that brings me onto the final Pokemon, Dreadnought, at +6. With the power of Arceus itself, I hit Dreadnought using my 120 base power Outrage, and she doesn't stand a chance. This brings me on to B, and if you remember anything about our first battle, then you know this is gonna be really easy. I could have used the exact same strategy I did before, since she still hasn't figured out about ghost types. Instead of exploiting that, I lead with Noivern. I'm sure you can already imagine what happened, but if you can't, the quick recap is Dragon Dance, boom boom, boom boom boom. My last fight before Leon is Raihan, and I'm looking to get my revenge since he's the one who took out Chinchino. On the first turn, I go for a Rock Slide as Torkoal hits me with a Yawn, and that'll put me to sleep on the next turn. Before that happens, I finish off Torkoal with a second Rock Slide, which leads into Flygon. For that, I switch into Noivern because I assume he's looking to hit me with a ground type move, but instead he sets up a Sandstorm. This really didn't go according to plan, but I should be able to survive a Dragon Claw so long as I don't get crit. By living, I can get off a Dragon Dance, which allows me to take care of Flygon and the following 2 Pokemon with Dragon Claws of my own. Last up to bat is G-Max Duraludon, and he's a lot more simple than he was before. By swapping into Jade and setting up a Will-O-Wisp, I'm not taking too much damage, and I can eventually dwindle him down with a couple of Earthquakes. All I've got left is Leon, and thankfully Chairman Rose stops this battle before it really starts, because if he didn't, then I would have lost every Pokemon on my team. Leon's level cap is 65, so after I get the Rusted Sword, I can actually start using my Dracoloak. The climax of this story brings me beneath Hammerlock, where I finally find the dumbest resident, which is Chairman Rose. He's almost completely ruined the world by accident, so I have to show him that his Pokemon aren't good, and neither is he. Since he represents Steel types, and most of them are 4 times weak to Colossal, this fight isn't that bad. I got the last hit on him with my Dracoloak, which caused her to evolve into a Dracopole. After all that, Leon tries to catch Eternatus in a Pokeball. I'm not really sure how he thought that was gonna work. Once he Gigantamaxes and we defeat him with the legendary Wolves, I decide to catch him with my regular Pokeball. But this works because I'm the main character. After all that, I bring my team up to the level cap and get ready to challenge Leon in my final battle. He leads the fight with Aegislash as I bring in my Dragapult and start by going for a Dragon Dance since he doesn't do any damage to me. On the next turn, I set up another one since I don't have to worry about a critical hit thanks to my Focus Sash. A Shadow Ball from him brings me to 11, and thanks to a Phantom Force, I can take him down. These one-shots would continue all the way up to the ace Pokemon, Gigantamax Charizard. Charizard isn't so simple. As a Dragon Darts isn't confirmed to kill, I decide to swap into Colossal. Sadly, Charizard went for a super effective Max Rockfall, which did a lot of damage. I still try to get off a Rock Slide, but it's no use as another Max Rockfall finishes off my Colossal. colossal. That unfortunately means we've lost our first ever Pokemon. To avenge him, I bring out Hatterene and go for a Protect to bait out Charizard's last Dynamax turn. This ended up being yet another mistake for me, as after a Psychic didn't kill, Charizard got healed by a full restore. With that, Leon can now shoot off a Fire Blast, and since it has 110 base power, I can't survive. That was our second Pokemon lost, and thankfully it ended up being the last. By bringing out my Dragapult with only 14 HP, I could KO the Charizard with Dragon Darts, which crowns me the champion of Galar. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing, because I spent a lot of time on this one. Also, huge thanks to the channel members, Mr. Proper, Jerry Perry, and Kino. I appreciate you guys a lot. With all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.